I was just getting ready to sleep when I noticed a small piece of folded paper on the floor, right by my bedroom door. At first, I thought it had just blown in from the hallway. Maybe a shopping receipt or a random paper from one of the kids' school books. But when I picked it up, I saw my name written in a rushed, shaky handwriting. That alone was enough to stop me in my tracks. Then I opened it and read just 6 words that instantly sent a chill down my spine. Asterisk, meet me after midnight. Please. Asterisk, it was signed by my stepdaughter. Now before you jump to conclusions, let me say this, it wasn't what it sounds like. But that doesn't mean it wasn't strange. My stepdaughter Lila is 17. Smart, quiet, and usually keeps to herself. We've always had a polite relationship, maybe even a bit distant, but never anything close to a heart-to-heart. So for her to reach out like this, and at that hour, was completely out of character. I stared at the note longer than I probably should have, wondering if it was some sort of joke. Maybe her friends dared her to prank me. Or maybe it was meant for someone else entirely, and ended up at my door by accident. But deep down, something didn't feel right. There was no emoji, no slang, not even a LOL. Just a straight-up, desperate-sounding message scribbled in pencil. And that one word, asterisk please asterisk, it stuck with me. Midnight wasn't far off, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something serious was going on. My wife had gone to bed early, completely unaware. The house was dark and quiet except for the faint hum of the fridge in the kitchen. I kept checking the time, thinking maybe I'd go ask her what it was about. But something about the way she wrote that note, so private, made me hesitate. She didn't want anyone else to know. As the minutes ticked by, I started remembering little things from the past few weeks. The times I'd seen her staring out the window for way too long. The way she flinched when her phone buzzed. And how she avoided eye contact more than usual at dinner. I had brushed it off, thinking it was just typical teenager stuff. But now I wasn't so sure. When the clock finally struck midnight, I opened my door and peeked out into the hallway. The house was still, but I could feel something hanging in the air. Something heavy, like a truth that was about to come out whether I was ready for it or not. Then I saw her standing at the end of the hallway in her hoodie, arms crossed, eyes filled with something I couldn't read. Fear? Guilt? Desperation? She didn't say a word. She just nodded toward the back door, then turned and walked away, expecting me to follow. And I did. What she told me next would change everything I thought I knew about our family. But I'll get to that in the next part. The back door creaked as she opened it, and the cool night air hit us both. Lila didn't say anything at first. She just stepped outside onto the patio and sat down on the old bench near the edge of the yard, pulling her sleeves down over her hands. I followed slowly, watching her carefully, unsure of what I was even walking into. The backyard was dimly lit by the porch light, casting long shadows on the grass, and for a moment it felt like the whole world had gone still. I sat beside her, not too close, just enough to show I was listening. She stared straight ahead, chewing at the inside of her lip. I could see her breathing a little faster than normal, and I was starting to feel that same tightness in my chest, the kind that comes right before something important, something you can't take back. I didn't know who else to tell, she finally said, barely above a whisper. Tell me what? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. She hesitated again, like the words were stuck. Then she looked at me for the first time, and I saw that her eyes were red, not from crying, but like she hadn't slept in days. Something's wrong, she said. And I think someone's watching me. I didn't say anything right away. Not because I didn't believe her, but because I needed a second to absorb what she just said. That sentence, asterisk someone's watching me asterisk, isn't something you expect to hear from your stepdaughter in the middle of the night. Watching you? Like, at school? I asked gently. She shook her head. Here. At home. Around the neighborhood. I keep seeing the same car. Same guy. At first I thought I was imagining it, but now I'm sure. And Mom? She wouldn't believe me. She'd just say I'm being dramatic or paranoid. That part hit me. Lila wasn't the type to make things up. If anything, she was quiet to a fault. She kept things inside too much. And her saying this now, in the middle of the night, meant it was serious. I glanced out toward the fence, scanning the yard like I expected to see someone standing there. Of course there was no one. Just the breeze rustling the leaves and the sound of a dog barking somewhere in the distance. Why didn't you come to me sooner? I asked. She gave a dry laugh, more sad than amused. We barely talk. I didn't know if you'd care. That one stung. Not because she was wrong, but because she wasn't. I always thought giving her space was the respectful thing to do, but maybe I'd confused distance with respect. Maybe she needed someone to actually show up for her. I care, I said finally. I'm here now. She nodded, but her jaw clenched like there was more, something deeper. There's something else, she said. Something I haven't told anyone. I think it's connected. And just like that, the air got heavier again. But before she could say another word, we both heard it. The unmistakable sound of a car engine, idling just beyond the trees. Lila's eyes widened, and I felt every hair on the back of my neck stand straight up. I stood up slowly, trying not to make any sudden movements. The hum of the engine was steady, low, and too close to be a coincidence. Lila stayed seated, frozen, eyes locked on mine. I motioned for her to stay where she was and stepped forward, just far enough to see past the hedges at the edge of our backyard. And there it was, a dark sedan parked near the corner of our street, headlights off, just sitting there. Not moving. No one got out. No windows rolled down. I turned back to Lila, lowering my voice. How long has this car been showing up? She hugged her arms tighter. About 2 weeks. First I saw it outside school. Then at the grocery store when I was with Mom. But this week, it's been parked across the street every night. Always after dark. Always in the same spot. I felt a mix of dread and disbelief tightening in my chest. This wasn't just a prank or a misunderstanding anymore. Something was definitely off. And someone was clearly watching her. But why? Have you told anyone else about this? A teacher? A friend? I asked. No. I don't want people thinking I'm crazy. And Mom's been so distracted lately, I didn't want to add more stress. She's already overwhelmed with work and other stuff. That other stuff hung in the air between us. I knew what she meant. My wife and I had been arguing more lately, about money, schedules, her ex, and how Lila was pulling away. It wasn't hostile, but it was tense enough that Lila must have felt it. I looked back toward the car, but it was gone. Just like that. No sound of tires, no lights turning on. Nothing. It had vanished in the few seconds I turned my back. I rubbed my face, heart pounding harder now, and sat beside her again. We need to tell your mom, I said carefully. Lila shook her head. No. Not yet. Please. Just help me figure out who it is first. I have a feeling it's someone I know. That stopped me. What makes you say that? She hesitated, biting her thumbnail. Because I got another note. Not from you. This one was in my backpack at school. No one saw anyone put it there. It just said asterisk I see you. Always. Asterisk. That hit different. My gut twisted. Whoever this was, they were close. Too close. Do you still have it? I asked. She nodded. It's in my room. I didn't want to throw it away. I figured. Maybe fingerprints or something. So she'd been thinking this through. Planning. Holding on to evidence. That said a lot about how scared she was. Just then, a light came on in the kitchen window. My wife. Probably looking for me. I turned my head, but when I looked back at Lila, she was staring at her phone, face pale. It's him, she whispered, holding up the screen. Blocked number. One text. Just 3 words, why him now? And I had no idea what that meant, or how deep this was really going. Lila stared at the message, her hands shaking just enough for me to notice. I took the phone gently from her and looked at the screen again. Why him now? The words were vague, but the tone felt personal, like whoever this was knew something about us. Not just her. That realization tightened my chest. This wasn't random. This was connected to me somehow. I glanced toward the house. The kitchen light was off again. Maybe my wife had gone back to bed. Maybe she thought I was just outside getting some air. I didn't know if I should tell her yet. Not because I wanted to keep secrets, but because I didn't even understand what we were dealing with. Lila pulled her hoodie tighter and leaned in closer. You think it's someone Mom knows? I wanted to say no. I wanted to tell her everything was going to be okay. But I couldn't lie to her anymore. It's possible. But we don't know anything for sure yet. She nodded slowly, but I could see she wasn't convinced. Neither was I. My mind started racing. thinking through names, faces, anyone from my wife's past who might hold a grudge. Her ex-husband was the obvious choice, but I hadn't seen him in months. And even then he never seemed unhinged. Difficult, sure. But dangerous? I wasn't so sure. Do you recognize the number? I asked. No. And I've tried calling it back. It's always disconnected. I handed the phone back, uneasy. This wasn't some kid from school messing around. Whoever was sending these texts had purpose, intent, and they wanted Lila to feel watched, to feel unsafe. That kind of behavior wasn't just creepy, it was calculated. Then she said something that hit me in a way I wasn't ready for. I think they want to hurt you. I turned to her. Me. She nodded. I didn't understand the message at first. But now I think maybe this isn't just about me. Maybe it never was. I couldn't ignore the feeling anymore. This was personal. The note under my door. The strange text. The car that kept showing up. Someone was watching both of us. Someone who knew where we lived when we'd be alone, and how to get inside our heads without even stepping into the house. Suddenly, a sound from the side of the house made both of us jump. It was faint metal clinking, like someone bumping into a trash can. My heart raced. I stood quickly, motioning for Lila to stay low. I crept along the side path, staying in the shadows. Every step I took felt heavier, slower. When I reached the edge of the garage, I paused and listened. Silence. Too much silence. And then a flicker of movement behind the fence. I couldn't see who it was. Just a dark figure slipping into the trees. I shouted out, "Hey!" and took a step forward, but they were already gone. When I turned back, Lila was standing now, shaking. "This isn't just stalking," she whispered. "It's a warning." And in that moment I realized we were already running out of time. I stood frozen for a second, heart pounding in my ears. Lila's words echoed. Asterisk, it's a warning. Asterisk, that dark figure disappearing into the trees wasn't just passing through. They were watching, listening, maybe even waiting for something. Or someone. I pulled out my phone to call the police, but paused. What would I even say? "Hi, someone's been watching my stepdaughter for weeks and just disappeared into the woods." Without proof, they'd probably just drive by and leave. And this didn't feel like something that would be solved with a flashlight and a patrol car. Lila stepped beside me, her face pale. "We need to look at the other note," she said. "There's something about it I didn't notice before." We rushed inside, locking the door behind us. The whole house felt different now, like someone had been inside it even if nothing looked out of place. Lila ran up to her room and came back down with the wrinkled paper. She handed it to me, her fingers trembling. The words were the same as she'd told me. Asterisk, I see you. Always. Asterisk, but there was something new in the corner. Something faint. A watermark, barely visible in the light. I tilted it under the lamp and my blood ran cold. It was the logo of a private security firm. One I had worked for nearly a decade ago, before I met Lila's mom, before this entire life. I hadn't thought about those days in years. That job had been short-lived but not forgettable. It ended badly, with a disagreement over a contract that had gone south. I had walked away, not looking back. Until now. I stared at the mark, speechless. There was no way this was a coincidence. Someone from that past had resurfaced. And somehow they were circling around my family. Lila looked at me, confused. "What is it?" I hesitated, then finally said, "It's from a job I had a long time ago. Before you were in my life." She frowned. "So this is about you?" "Maybe," I admitted. "Or maybe it's about both of us. Maybe someone's trying to make it look like it's about you to get to me." Her mouth opened like she was about to say something else, but before she could, the doorbell rang. Both of us jumped. We looked at each other, then at the clock. It was 1:47 a.m. The doorbell rang again. I reached into the drawer and pulled out the small flashlight I kept there, clicked it on and crept toward the front door. Through the peephole I saw a man standing on the porch. Mid-40s, wearing a plain hoodie, hands at his sides. He looked up straight into the peephole, as if he knew I was watching. Then he said something, loud enough to hear through the door. "Tell her I kept my promise." Lila's face turned white. I stepped back. "You know him?" She nodded, her voice barely a whisper. "That's my real dad." I didn't open the door right away. I couldn't. Lila's face said everything. She was in shock. I turned to her, trying to piece it all together. You said he was gone. That he disappeared years ago. He did, she whispered. Mom told me he moved out of state. No calls.
No visits.
Nothing. But now here he was standing on our porch in the middle of the night, looking like he'd been waiting for this moment for a long time. My pulse hammered in my ears as I slowly cracked the door open, just enough to speak without letting him in. Why are you here? I asked. His eyes flicked to me, no anger, no fear. Just calm, like this was all going according to his plan. I told her I'd come back when it wasn't safe anymore. And it's not safe anymore. Behind me I felt Lila edge closer. You're the one watching her? I demanded. Following her? Leaving notes? He shook his head. Not me. I've been watching them. The ones after her. After you. I thought I had more time, but I was wrong. They found her. What are you talking about? I asked, trying to hold back the urge to pull him inside and get real answers. He looked past me directly at Lila. Ask your mother about 2010. About the job she took behind my back. That's when everything started. I opened the door wider, and he stepped in slowly, his hands still at his sides. He looked older, worn out, but there was something in his voice, urgency, not threat. Your mom wasn't just a consultant, he said. She was part of something bigger. Something dangerous. She walked away before it went public. And people got burned. I stayed behind to clean it up and protect Lila from a distance. I stared at him, unsure what to believe. Lila was frozen, processing it all. Then it hit me, the watermark on the note. It wasn't from my old job. It was from hers. All this time I'd been thinking the threat was from my past. But it was hers. And she never said a word. Before I could react, the window behind us shattered. A small object flew in, landing on the rug with a dull clink. Smoke began pouring out. Get down, her father yelled, diving over us and kicking the device back through the broken glass. It hit the porch and exploded with a burst of thick, choking smoke. We coughed and stumbled, trying to reach the back door. Alarms from nearby houses started to go off. Lights came on. Sirens in the distance. Outside, shadows ran from the trees. More than one. Fast. Silent. But one stayed behind, caught under the porch light for a second too long. It was someone I recognized. My wife's coworker. The one who always came to drop off files. The one she said barely spoke to her. Lila saw him too. She turned to me, eyes wide with realization. She lied to both of us. And I finally understood, we weren't the only ones keeping secrets in this house. The smoke finally cleared as police swarmed the street, sirens flashing red and blue across the windows. Lila sat beside me on the living room floor, wrapped in a blanket one of the officers had handed her. Her real dad stood by the window, giving his statement quietly to a detective. And my wife, she was sitting in the corner, arms folded, silent. She hadn't said a word since the truth came out. It didn't take long for everything to unravel. The man we saw under the porch light, her so-called coworker, wasn't just someone from the office. He was part of the same group my wife had once worked with. Back in 2010, when things had gone bad, she had taken something with her when she left: files, documents, names. She thought she'd buried it all by changing her life, marrying me, moving cities. But the people she'd crossed never stopped looking. And Lila, being her daughter, became the easiest pressure point. She had hidden it from all of us, thinking silence was safer. But secrets have a way of surfacing, especially when someone's watching from the shadows. Over the next few days, the investigation moved quickly. The men who had been circling our neighborhood were arrested. Evidence connected them to a string of threats and intimidation cases involving other former employees tied to the same firm. Lila's father, Thomas, was cleared. Turns out he'd been tracking them for months, waiting for the right moment to step in without risking more harm. He'd been protecting Lila from a distance, keeping his promise, even when it cost him everything else. We had long talks, all of us. Some were tense, some emotional. Lila asked hard questions, and this time my wife answered them honestly. There were no more quiet lies. Just a painful kind of truth that finally made sense of everything. The distant looks, the late-night calls, the fear in her eyes she tried to hide. Things didn't magically fix themselves. But they started to shift. Lila and her father began rebuilding their relationship slowly. I didn't stand in the way. If anything, I supported it. I realized that being a stepfather wasn't about replacing someone. It was about showing up when it mattered. And I had. That night on the patio changed us both. My wife and I took space. Not out of anger, but because trust needed time. We agreed to counseling, to rebuilding with honesty this time. If there's one thing we all learned, it's that hiding the past doesn't erase it. It just gives it more power. As for Lila, she went back to school after a week, a little more guarded but stronger. She carries herself differently now. A little braver. A little wiser. She still slips notes sometimes, only now they say things like "thanks for listening." And late at night, when the house is quiet, I sometimes replay that moment, the note under my door. What felt like a whisper turned out to be the start of a truth we all needed to face. Because sometimes the scariest stories don't come from outside your home. They start right inside it.